Rise of Kingdoms is a very old game, there's no doubt about it. It's going on to like 5 or 6 years old now, and I've been playing for almost 3 years myself. But personally, I've noticed over my almost 1,000 days playing, there are 5 really big issues that do plague the game. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the 5 issues which could actually make Rise of Kingdoms a bad game if they weren't solved. So if you guys want to know about the 5 biggest issues in Rise of Kingdoms, if you want to help spread the word of today's video and just hope that new and fun exciting changes come to the game, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now let me start off today's video by quickly giving some background to it, because you're probably confused why I make a video basically titled Rise of Kingdoms is a bad game, and it's really simple. Rise of Kingdoms has got its fair share of issues. I'm sure you know in this channel I like to be completely open about my opinion, and over 1,000 days of playing the game, I've been burnt out multiple times where I don't really want to play the game, and to be quite honest, right now is one of those times. So I'm going to be discussing 5 reasons why I find Rise of Kingdoms is not that fun at the moment for me, and some things that I've noticed have been quite repetitive as to why I do get burnt out of the game. So I'm going to give these with my own personal opinion. These 5 issues, I'll talk how I want them to be solved or how they should be solved, and obviously you guys can feel free to tell me your opinions down in the comments. And one thing I'd like to say, this isn't meant to be just an attack on the Rise of Kingdoms game, it's more of a way for me to hopefully get some improvement into the game. I know personally I was a massive advocate for pushing for the legendary Tavern and Heart's Desire event to be improved, and it was improved. Maybe that was a part of my videos, maybe it was just a random thing that coincided with it, but I do hope to think that these videos make an impact on the Rise of Kingdoms community and may cause some changes. So today's video is really just to discuss 5 things I think would definitely improve the game, and 5 things I've noticed have made my experience a little bit less enjoyable when I'm playing the game and can make it a lot more boring and can cause a lot of burnout. And I'm sure a lot of players will agree with most of the things that I do say in today's video. So now let's just start off with my first point here, and these are going to be in order from the least impactful down to the most impactful. And the first big issue with Rise of Kingdoms is the lack of new events. I'm sure that if you've played the game for quite a while now, you've seen the events repeat more than once. I've seen Correct Ceremony maybe like 50 to 60 times. Shadow Legions come around every now and again. Strategic Reserve comes around. Fill the Storehouse, Champions of Olympia, Ian's Ballads, and Soroli Crisis. They alternate like every week. I think I've done the event like 100 times. And obviously this gets really boring. And so the first issue with Rise of Kingdoms is that lack of new events. And the real simple way to solve this is just adding more events into the cycle. I'm not saying delete the Correct Ceremony and never use it again. Maybe add another event where there's some different form of game mode. Obviously, I'm not a game developer. I don't really know what events should be added that would be fun and enjoyable, but that is technically Lilith's job realistically. We're giving them money for a good gaming service, and obviously they're meant to add more new content to it. And something they have been neglecting is just the events in general. And even with the seasonal events, they're often remakes of old events with occasionally something new. For example, the puzzle event came out once and now they've been doing a ton of puzzles. One of the armaments event came out once, now they just do a ton of those. And those events, yes, they sometimes are quite new, but they often involve something like, well, puzzles. Not many people like doing puzzles. I mean, if you do enjoy them, obviously that's fun. I personally don't mind that event. And then you've got events such as just gem spinning events, Esmeralda's Prayer. You've got events like I said, the armament event, things in seasonal events that are not really skill based, they're not really an activity, they're just like spend gems and you get these rewards, and it's usually decent value, but it's not that amazing. And then you just got the repeat 7k gem event, and you got the like log in and do some quests to get like 100 epic sculptures. Those get boring as well. So adding more events to the game would be very fun that just fit into the normal cycle of the game. Maybe a different version of Mightiest Governor, or another way to get these commanders. Maybe, like I said, a different version of Kurak. And these aren't meant to be during KVK. They should be things that you can do outside of KVK, because you'll notice a reoccurring theme throughout this list is the lack of outside of KVK content. And it's a really big gap of just a really boring time period. When you're not in KVK, the game can be really boring, and the lack of events is certainly a major reason that contributes to this. The next issue I would like to discuss that I find is a little bit boring with the game is just the lack of PvE content. PvE means fighting things such as barbarians, such as, let's say, barbarian forts, and then also things such as barbarian strongholds. This game definitely does take quite a big emphasis on killing barbarians. I mean, you have to kill them for speed ups. You kill barbarian forts for speed ups as well. And even barbarian strongholds are quite important. But when we think about it, they've been done so many times. I think my account's probably defeated upwards of like 10,000 barbarians. I've probably helped destroy like 500 barbarian forts. It's crazy how many times you do the same things over and over again. And even the strongholds, which you can only do every so often, are like pretty repetitive. I mean, they are something that is quite a fresh like look into the game, but they still can get quite just monotonous and repetitive. And that's the biggest issue with PvE content. And Lilith definitely should change it up a little bit. Maybe something that I think would be pretty cool, maybe you don't agree, but I think this would be cool, is adding like a barbarian horde that just walks across the map and takes over maybe a holy site or a shrine, but only when you're not in KvK, because obviously if it's in KvK at that point, it's just an annoyance. Or maybe these barbarian hordes will take over one of your alliance flags. Doesn't kill the flag, doesn't make the flag ineffective, but it just gives you an event to go and do, which gives you extra rewards. And obviously, I'm sure most players would agree, more ways to get rewards from fighting barbarians would just be fun. And even if it's not like a ton of rewards, just a new way to fight barbs, which gives you some form of value, would be fun as well. Or maybe all the barbarian like forts go into one barbarian like stronghold, not like an actual stronghold like these, but like this massive barbarian fort which you need like a full rally to take down. Something like that would certainly be very, very fun. And they don't have to be commonly occurring things. Stuff that maybe happens once or twice a day or once or twice a week at a random time would just be new and fun content to add a little bit of difference into the game. And with all the new graphics coming, I think now is the best time to do it. There's tons of new ways to implement tons of PvE content. Maybe barbarians take over resource nodes. I don't really know where you could go with this, but there's 1,001 ways with this whole entire free moving map to just add more ways to fight in PvE and make the game, in my opinion, a lot more enjoyable. Now, the next issue I would like to talk about is maybe not as important as the other two and probably should have been the first one I spoke about, but that is dry gameplay in Rise of Kingdoms. And this is going to be the only issue really focusing in on KvKs, and it's super, super simple. When you play Rise of Kingdoms, especially in KvK, you'll notice the fighting is really, really simple. It's smash your troops into enemy troops and throw rallies and garrisons and try keep things alive. Obviously, it does go a little bit more in depth in terms of flag building and stuff, but most players don't really get to that point. They're either there for the KvK fighting or they are doing the extra strategy like flag building, but like I said, majority of players don't get there. So the Rise of Kingdoms is in some ways dry with gameplay, and what adds to this is the very repetitive terrain. Besides maybe some graphics changes on the Great Ziggurats in some KvKs and some different places for the Dark Altars and stuff, the KvK fighting is really, really similar. Take the pass, build territory, fight. Take the pass, build territory, fight. And this is not necessarily a bad formula. It is still quite fun, but I think adding different ways to fight and different styles of fighting could be interesting. How exactly would I implement this? Well, maybe, for example, changing up the terrain drastically on one KvK. Maybe, for example, the Great Ziggurat is surrounded only by mountains and there's just one entrance to it, or two entrances, because that would mean two camps. So something like that could be really, really unique and really fun. Or maybe a KvK, and this is a really, really out there idea, but maybe a KvK where it's literally just like a free-for-all blood brawl, and every single kingdom just fights, and whoever has the most kills in the end from enemy kingdoms only gets just crazy rewards, like they won a KvK. Something like that could be crazily fun and would add like a different aspect to the dry gameplay. It'd make the game much more interesting. Maybe ways to, I don't know how this would be implemented, ways to overcome terrain, such as a few flags that can build just straight over mountains. And I think once again, with the new graphics changes coming, this could look really, really cool and be implemented in a unique aspect or a unique way. And obviously, I don't think every single KvK should receive this. They should be done through test KvKs. Since I'm no game developer, I'm just shooting out ideas that could sound fun and interesting to alleviate that lack of dry gameplay. But one thing I will mention that Lilith has done well in this regard is the crazy addition of KvKs. The amount of KvKs they've added with new features is definitely quite high, but if you don't get into these other KvKs, it's not as fun, and after a few years, these KvKs get pretty old, but they are still running, which is, I guess, a good thing, but also a bad thing at the same time. So Lilith definitely is adding lots of new KvKs, which is definitely nice, but the features are often only available in the later KvKs, and they don't ever roll back to the older ones. Like Heroic Anthem has only ever seen one other version of the KvK. I think it's been scrapped now. I don't think Strife of the 8 has ever been changed. So realistically, Rise of Kingdoms is a very fun game in terms of the amount of KVKs they're adding, but the gameplay can be a little bit dry. I will mention though, there are some KVK formats that even small changes make way more fun. I'm pretty sure it was in my Warriors Unbound or my Storm of the Stratagems where counter rallies launch instantly, and that is just an insanely small change to make that is insanely fun and makes a huge difference. So small things like that can definitely help alleviate dry gameplay, and doing those in different KVK formats and putting them in old ones and changing how old KVKs work and rebuilding the maps can be really, really fun. And it doesn't even have to be like crazily rebuilding the maps, just small things. Maybe, for example, like I said, this can be just like surrounding the Kingsland, moving where the Dark Altars are. Stuff like that can be fun and can definitely add a lot more strategy into the game and a lot more new and exciting gameplay, which obviously would make KVKs a lot more exciting. Even some of these older ones, like Heroic Anthem, which as you can see is definitely still the most commonly played KVK pretty much in the game. Now, moving back away from KVK directly itself, the next thing I'd like to talk about is KVK recovery, and this definitely has its issues on its own, and it definitely also links in with a few of the other things I've spoken about, because I've spoken about the lack of PvE content, and I've spoken about the lack of events. So when you're not in KVK, realistically what you're doing is you're doing events and you're doing PvE content with occasional gathering, and you need to do these things to realistically be prepared for your next KVK, unless you are doing stuff such as spending a large amount of money. So outside of KVK is probably around 60 to 90 days, depending on how strong your last KVK was. So KVK recovery has to be a fun time period. Some people say they like the calm down and the bludge of it, but realistically after 10-15 days you're ready to get back into KVK and do something fun. But obviously you still have to gather resources and stuff like that. So KVK itself is definitely a big aspect of the game, but because of how slow and boring KVK recovery can be, it does add that aspect to the game that makes the game a lot less enjoyable. I think, in my opinion, end Season of Conquest Kingdoms should be left in a KVK until they get another one that keeps them in the higher level resource nodes, higher level barbarians, extra speed ups and things like that, which would just be a lot cooler. I think their whole entire home kingdom should just revamp itself once you hit Season of Conquest, and that would be, in my opinion, somewhat fair. After each KVK that passes, the home kingdom revamps itself. So after KVK 1, all the bombs are like level 30 or something, whatever max is. KVK 2, they reach level 45, and then KVK 3, they're all max level, and then it just sticks like that. And in my opinion, that would be much more fun, and keeping the stuff like the extra all damage and things like that would also be really important for the home kingdom. So I think giving less boring outside of KVK stuff is good. Best way to do that, in my opinion, is improving how many things you just get by being in the home kingdom, because I can say fairly confidently level 24 barbarians are A, very boring and easy to kill compared to level 55 barbarians, and B, their resources are absolutely just not even close. So allowing us just to keep those barbarians would be good, and obviously that's going to mean we get more stuff, but realistically, it just means we fight more and we play the game more. So Lilith is obviously gonna like that quite a bit. One other way they could do this is by making KVKs less intense on your account. And they have been doing this a lot recently, actually, with the Storm of the Stratagems. When I personally played it, there was a ton of ways just to cut your sev costs. There was stuff like the Triage, which allows you to reduce sevs by like 20%. There was a way to reduce hospital costs by 30% or something dumb. There's tons of ways to save resources in Storm of the Stratagems, and that obviously is going to help with your account recovery. So adding more ways like in Storm of the Stratagems to save your resources, save your materials for your next KVK is obviously a really, really good idea. It allows you to have a shorter KVK recovery time, and if they add the higher level barbarians on top of that, then you can pretty much go through a KVK not fairly quickly, but fairly easily. If you're in KVK a bit earlier than before, then you're in KVK a bit earlier before, and you're able to use those saved resources and those new resources from fighting barbarians to make your account a little bit more enjoyable in that KVK. And even in Tides of the War, Lilith has been pushing a few new ways to heal your troops. I think they added like healing potions. Haven't looked too much into this KVK. I know a few people are doing it, but I think that even then it can still be improved upon and make KVK recovery an even shorter time frame. Or maybe even, this might sound insane, but a KVK where you get no sev wounds. I think that's crazy. Maybe not, but things like just reducing KVK recovery time and making it less monotonous would certainly be extremely fun. One thing that I would also like to note about KVK recovery and adding like max level barbarians to Home Kingdom, I don't actually think it would really impact Lilith's income. I know a lot of people are going to say Lilith won't do it because of the money, but realistically, in my opinion, Lilith's main forms of income come from buying gems, which yes, KVK barbarians give more gems, but they don't give that much more. It also comes from doing events that give you extra gold heads, and realistically, KVK barbarians give you no gold heads. And it comes from people buying crystal tech. And what do those main things come down to? Gems are for commanders and equipment. Crystal Tech is for KVK, they're both for KVK. I improve my account to trade better in KVK, I don't improve my account to fight level 25 barbarians. So realistically, if Lilith allows people to do KVK more often, it would mean more people will purchase Crystal Tech, or it may mean more people will purchase bundles for even speed ups because whales are going to burn through those, or it could even mean something such as people will be more interested in their commanders and will make shorter term investments, which will be more logical because you'll be able to do more KVKs within a short time frame, which means these new commander releases wouldn't be nearly as bad because you get a commander and then by the time you enter the next KVK, there's a new commander. But maybe now you can do 2 KVKs before new commanders release, and stuff like that would A, make the game more enjoyable and let you enjoy the current meta a little bit more, and B, would make it so Lilith could possibly earn more money off stuff like Crystal Tech, off stuff like new commanders. And obviously I'm not a big advocate for spamming the game with commanders, but it's gonna happen. So Lilith still has the opportunity to earn money, and we still have an opportunity to do KVK more often, especially our smaller accounts, who realistically, I don't buy speed ups, I don't buy things to train troops, and most people at my power level are not going to do that either. Now, the final issue, which I think is really big in Rise of Kingdoms, and is probably the biggest issue I will discuss today, is the repetitiveness of the game. And this links back to literally every single thing I spoke about in today's video. The events in the game are currently really repetitive. I've done probably every single one over 30-40 times. I'm sure most people watching are in the same situation. Barbarians, I've destroyed thousands of them so many times. I've been destroying barbarian forts since my account began, and everyone can pretty much relate to this in every situation, and this just makes the game repetitive. You just fight barbarians, gather resources, do some events, do KVK, and this repeats. And realistically, the way that Lilith has to change this is just with new content in all aspects of the game. I would expect, realistically, we get new things into our base. Not necessarily city hall levels, but stuff like the museum. Things even like the state form do add new aspects to the game and can make it quite fun. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of armaments, when they were added, they were a fun new addition to the game, and Lilith is slowly trying to improve the system, and adding things like I said, more PvE content and more events will make the game better. And this isn't just like a one-stop fix. You can't just add 5 new events and say, everybody, we've fixed the whole entire game, it's not repetitive anymore, come and play it for the next 300 years. It's not going to work like that. They have to constantly add some form of new content to the game that is not just in KVK, because KVK is not something you can do 24/7. There is recovery time, which obviously I did recommend becomes shorter, but you still want to be able to do stuff while your account is recovering, while you're waiting for a pass to open, and things like that are quite important. So being able to add more content to the game is really the best way to refresh it, because the event calendar and the events in general have definitely been neglected, and other aspects in terms of PvE have just not been touched in like 7 to 8 years. So there's definitely ways to improve the game without just restricting our barbarian forts and restricting barbarian strongholds. I think there's ways to make it so people are willing to play more, willing to fight more, willing to do more PvE content, which will just make the game overall more enjoyable, rather than just a long slog to grind resources for like an hour of fun fighting, which I think is not the best formula for a game where it's all about trying to be as active as possible to get the most amount of rewards possible, because how much can you really do nowadays with the same events over and over again without becoming super bored and super burnt out of the game. So now that you've made it to the end of today's video, I just want to say thank you for watching to the end, and I have a very small request. You've listened to my voice for like 20 minutes now, so why not listen to my typing as well? Do consider joining the Archer Syndicate Discord server. It's basically the best place for any Rise of Kingdoms questions. I will answer anything you send probably within a day or so, especially if you ping me. I can answer it much sooner because I will see it sooner, and you can also DM me from there, and I will once again answer anything you send to me within 1 to 2 days. So guys, do consider joining the Archer Syndicate Discord. Link will be in the pinned comment and also in the description. And if I ever don't answer any of your questions, I'm sure someone else in the Discord will. And even then, I still will usually respond after they have responded as well. So consider joining the server. It's one of the best places for Archer advice in the game, and also just a good place to ask for advice in general, because there are tons of players in that server from all different countries, people who speak different languages, people who run different troop types. Some people even run older commander combos. So if you're interested in old commanders, interested in new commanders, interested in equipment, ways I believe we can change the game, just a good place to express your opinions on Rise of Kingdoms, I highly recommend joining that server. Link will be pinned comment and also in the description. Trust me, you guys won't regret it. Now, I thank you very much for listening to, I guess, my rant or my mumble, and I hope to see you in the next one.